It is one of the original models from the Ghost in the Shell collaboration that was also one of the very first of 3 that debuted the tune-up treatment. It is KKS00 9's Leader, regraded, with a kit of Ghost, Assassin, Thunder, biped legs, and the leg ability of Illusion, which grants the stealth effect to self when charging Metaforce. Now, not just as one of the first major collaborations that Medarot S had in its 3-year history at current time of recording, but also one of the very first models to introduce the tune-up treatment. Nine's Leader, even excluding both of those factors, brings a lot of things to the mono female teams that make her a very highly sought after unit to make use of for anyone that was lucky enough to snag her. Ghost on the head part is a melee skill that gets a damage bonus relative to Metaforce charged in her gauge. In addition to dealing immensely high amounts of damage possible, it also has passive defense ignore when capped at 5-star, which means that if she does take a little bit of a hammering or she decides to charge Metaforce on the side for a couple turns, a couple of hammers of Ghost will absolutely put down any enemy that's faced in her path. Right Arm of Assassin is a melee skill that has a rather interesting mechanic to it, but upon attacking a target, the attack is guaranteed to land and guaranteed to be a critical hit on top of that. But both of those lucky little bonuses come with a major nasty caveat. And that caveat is if you fail to break apart on your strike, your arm breaks. So it's either they break or you break, and there is no in between. Left Arm of Thunder is an ailment skill that, upon attacking a target, will stop them cold in their tracks upon being stunned. Now, in comparison to Freeze, which guarantees hits and crits, Thunder, on the other hand, only guarantees the hit will land. So even though it still will buy you a couple extra seconds of time to build behind your strategy, it still does come as a very handy surprise for anyone that does need to stall potentially dangerous opponents. Biped legs means that she will have very solid coverage across all terrains, as biped is arguably one of the next best rounded legs of all when it comes to terrain mastery. When it comes to armor, she is kind of packing just a little bit higher than most, but also kind of in that decent little mid-range of where females tend to be. Head HP about 3,300, arms about 2,900 each, and legs about 3,350 means she has a relatively decent HP pool when it comes to female-based models like herself, but also means that she can take a hit moderately well, especially given the fact that she's designed to be, well, an assassin to a point more than a dedicated and extended fight nuker. Her leg stats aren't too shabby, but she also has one that makes it really, really difficult to use her adequately. A mobility of 793 is very, very good. You will have a very good base mobility, and then from there rely for the most part on her heat and cool stats or any Medarot bonuses to keep her going. An evade of 954 isn't too shabby either, as she will have a pretty good time dodging or grazing incoming attacks. A melee resist of 1327 is very, very nice, as this certainly means she can hold her own up close and personal, as one of her caliber would be expected to. But a shoot resist of 401 is honestly abysmally terrible, as it does mean that anyone that does catch her in the backside with a gunshot will absolutely put her down a lot faster than you'd really want her to be on the field. Taking this into account with her tune-up skills, even though she was one of the very first to get it, to be completely honest, her bonuses were one of those few that you really don't want to focus on too heavily, and it's great to have the bonuses, but it also won't drastically change her performance. But, all the same, her head part has access to plus 30 to cool, plus 100 to power, and plus 200 to armor. Now, being completely honest, like I mentioned, a lot of her bonuses really won't add a lot of noticeable change to how she behaves on the field, but there are still some bonuses you can make use of very easily if capitalized on. Primarily, plus 30 to cool, you probably won't even notice if you were to go for that bonus, so going for the plus 100 to power very easily goes without saying for Ghost, and the armor plus 200 also is a very nice bonus to keep her alive just a little bit longer. The right arm assassin has access to plus 30 to cool, plus 50 to power, and plus 100 to heat. Naturally, again, that plus 30 to cool really won't be super noticeable, and to be completely honest, the plus 50 to power really isn't going to be super noticeable either, as that's going to be maybe like a fraction of a percentage of your damage multiplier. But any boost to power that you can capitalize on is still worth very much so going after. Plus, the 100 to heat will mean she will go considerably faster when prepping to use the skill, so she will be very good at possibly outrunning foes or even catching them off guard right behind them when they finish their turn. Left Arm of Thunder has access to plus 50 to cool, plus 100 to power, and plus 200 to armor. Now again, that plus 50 to cool may not be super noticeable at first glance, but the plus 100 to power and 200 to armor most certainly will be, as this means she will hit just a little bit harder than before, and in addition, she will have just a little bit more armor to keep her alive longer on the field. Legs have access to plus 200 to shoot resist, plus 50 to mobility, and S rank on prairie terrain. Now, normally when it comes to my tune-up bonuses, I tend to advocate for mobility above all things, except for very rare circumstances. But in this case, Nines is one of those models that you actually don't want to focus on mobility too badly, because she already has a pretty fair number at her disposal at about almost 800. But that extra 200 to shoot resist will make her noticeably tankier against incoming shooting attacks, which is very, very good for her, as it means that she can certainly hold her own on the field longer without being gunned down by anyone taking pot shots. Normally, the S rank on prairie terrain I tend not to advocate for too much, but that extra 10% may or may not come in handy, I suppose, depending on where you put it. So you could honestly go between that or the 50 in mobility and really not see any major change in her performance overall. Now, factoring in her original pure set and mixed parts score, I originally had her at an 8 and a 9 out of 10 respectively. Despite her very, very low shoot resist, she was still moderately forgivable as long as you could keep her covered. Plus, the illusion-like ability did actually aid to this to a point, to try to keep her damage controlled or as low as possible when she was being targeted. Taking her tune-ups into account, I do very easily have to bump her up to an 8, actually keep her equal at about an 8 and a 9 out of 10 when it comes to her pure set and mixed parts scores, primarily for the fact that even though her bonuses may make her noticeably faster, a little tankier, or keep her just a little bit more well-guarded in incoming attacks, the bonuses aren't really enough to truly make or break what she brings to the field. She is still very agile, relatively powerful, and a very good asset to any Metarotters that did collect her that are in need of particularly niche and powerful female-based nukers, especially when it comes to the female variety.